Brodes Media.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? So we have another Eagles Minicamp show to talk about, and what I did this show, which was a little different from the podcast I uploaded on Friday morning, is I tried to focus a little bit more on what was actually happening on the football field. We do eventually get to the Sirianni stuff and the Brandon Graham stuff because, well, I had to express on Bleacher Report all of my thoughts and my takeaways from the minicamp, and, well, there was a big portion of that leaned towards the coaching staff and whatnot, but I did give you more substance on Quinyon Mitchell, Bryce Huff, and things of that nature. So I just want to point that out at the start of the show. And look, if you're new to the channel, make sure you hit the subscribe button, hit the thumbs up button as well. Thank you all so much for the crazy support. And you can also take me on the road with you. That's right. You can hook me up to your Bluetooth in the car by going to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcast, any podcasting platform. Type in Sports Talk with Brodes, and then bang, leave a 5-star rating and a review. It would mean the world to me. Thank you all so much for the love, and make sure you enjoy the show. What is going on, everybody? Welcome on into Bleacher Report Live, and we have some Eagles minicamp to talk about. And if I'm being transparent with the world, I am very angry towards the organizational approach between the front office and Nick Sirianni. Hearing Jalen Hurts speak over the last 24 to 48 hours does not make me feel any better about the current state of the head coach. But I want to try and focus for just a little bit of time here on what actually went down on the football field over the last 3 days, because, you know, the second I go into head coach mode, I lose my marbles, and that becomes my frustrating thoughts. Like, I can't wrap my head around it. So I want to start the show off by truly looking at James Bradberry, looking at Mekhi Becton, looking at Bryce Huff and what he had to say about Vic Fangio compared to maybe what was happening with the New York Jets and all the success that you saw with him up 95 about a year ago or so when he was logging in a bunch of sacks and hitting the quarterback. I want to touch on that more. So we'll start there. And realistically, I think the best way to do this is, let's talk about James Bradberry, who clearly was getting targeted last season, so much so that I think the entire defense lost their swag, because anybody, and I mean anybody, including the Drew Locks of the world, could close their eyes and say, "We are going to abuse you, James. You may have had a good season in 22. You may at one particular time had some stellar seasons with New York, but right now you got nothing left in the tank, and we are going to crush your soul nonstop." And when the rest of the team sees that James Bradberry has zero answers and can't keep up with anybody in the secondary at the quarterback position, well, then the rest of the defense has zero life. So what do the Eagles try and do? Well, they move him to safety. But what happens? He gets injured within seconds and then barely can even practice to show any sort of versatility. Now, do I truly think that he will pan out at safety? No. This reeks of desperation. This reeks of him holding on for dear life to a position here, because there's no way he competes with Darius Slay, obviously, Cooper DeJean, Quinyon Mitchell, and apparently Isaiah Rodgers has been absolutely lighting the world on fire with some pretty eye-opening plays. So if those characters are all fighting for cornerback 2 spots, and James Bradberry, I don't know, is he going to play well in the slot? Probably not. You got Avonte Maddox who's working there. He's also working at safety too. So I guess the only thing, prior to seeing him get injured, the only thing that I actually had some optimism for James Bradberry would be he can stay healthy. Ironic enough, that wasn't the case, unless this was just a strategic move, considering there's clearly a relationship fracture between Howie Roseman, Bradberry, the contract. The Eagles don't prefer having him here. The only reason he is here currently is because of the money. So because he tweaked something, is this where they both sit down, they communicate with one another, Howie and James Bradberry, that is, and they say, let's not go out there and hurt yourself anymore. We're trying to take phone calls on you, or we're trying to call other teams and see if we can rationalize a deal. instead of putting yourself out there and maybe something else bad can happen, let's just move forward here and relax. Don't worry about minicamp stuff. Don't worry about putting your body out there on the line. We're trying to field some phone calls. Just take a breather. I'm wondering how bad this injury could really be when he's working on some footwork stuff at practice. I don't know. I think it's a little strange for him to do zero, to do zip, to do nothing. Although I guess that makes a lot of sense because he did zero, zip, and nothing last season, and we got abused. Oh, my God. It was so gross. But anyway, I digress. One of the reasons why I thought maybe there was some opportunities for him playing safety is C.J. Gardner-Johnson does have a history of getting banged up. You see that Sidney Brown had an injury last year. Reed Blankenship had an injury last year. Avonte Maddox had an injury last year. So I'm looking at all of the guys who play safety. There is a potential window for James Bradberry to slide in there and actually be able to at least be a body, right? Now, I don't know how good of a body, but at least be a body. And then with seconds into this minicamp, nothing. So just something to monitor here. But I wasn't the biggest fan in the world of the move anyway. Is it better than cornerback and him trying to fight with all of the young blood? Absolutely, because there was no way in hell he was going to beat out anybody or win that battle. But just because you're moving him to a safety position, does that mean he will thrive there or flourish? And my answer is no. It smells like he has to do this or else he will be sitting on the bench and not even competent. So we have to try something because we know option one is a complete failure. That's where my mindset is with James Bradberry. But unfortunately, we weren't even able to see any sort of information. We couldn't gather anything. Not that you get everything in the world anyway, substance-wise, out of these camps, but it would have been nice to see some flashy plays. It's just about, can you create moments? Can you do something? For example, I was listening to, who was it? It was Dave Zangaro, Ruben Frank. They've been covering the team for a while, right? And they said, oh, yeah, there was a nice sequence where Johnny Wilson, who's one of their draft picks, 6'6", I believe, huge body, big body. He might even be bigger than that. My point is, he's a very large specimen. And sprinkled in there, it's not as if the offense had very good days. The defense was 10 times 10,000 steps ahead of anything the offense was doing, apparently. But there were some spurts. Kenny Pickett made a nice throw. Johnny Wilson went up and grabbed it. Just create moments. So even if there was one or two plays over the last 72 hours where James Bradberry did something solid, I'll take one or two plays compared to this, which is he had to get helped off the field by one of the trainers and then you never see him again. You know what I'm saying? So that's the substance I'm looking for out of a training camp or out of a mini camp, if you will. That's the Bradberry front. Let's get to the Quinyon Mitchell front. I got to be honest with you. I love hearing him talk trash to A.J. Brown. He seems to be one of those quiet killers. Now, if you didn't hear what happened, apparently him and A.J. were going back and forth, and they were taking some snaps against one another. And Quinyon Mitchell goes, yo, that route was trash. So he's in his face. Here's a rookie, right? A rookie that we look at as potentially taking over CB1 when Darius Slay is no longer in town. Not now, but when Darius Slay and his time ends up running out here, because eventually that will happen, we need Quinyon Mitchell, your first-round draft pick, to step in here and be a stud and shut down other teams' number one receivers in the future. And this guy, in the first few days of him getting into action in minicamp, gets into the face of A.J. Brown when he seems to be a quiet guy, when he seems to be some of the, some of the personality traits seem to be on the more I'm just quiet and I go about my business type of way. And he's in the face of AJ, who's one of the best receivers in the league, who just got paid a big amount of money. And he goes, yo, your routes are trash, bro. I love it. I love it. That's what I love. That's what I love. I didn't expect it. So when I saw it, I got smacked in the face with it and go, yo, all right, baby. All right. Now, there were a lot of guys who do a lot of breakdowns on the draft who said that this is potentially in there, right? I mean, there is a part of it played at a smaller school, but his relationships, his connection with a lot of the people that he was playing with at Toledo is a core reason why he stayed there. So we know from that front, he's a good dude who values relationships, and that's strong. But he has that edge. He has the fire. He has the ability to play at Alabama, to play in the SEC, to play at Georgia. And when you hear that he's willing to talk that talk, I think that describes someone with the personality traits that can relate to these top upper echelon schools. It's A.J. Brown. A rookie stepping in and talking smack to A.J. Brown is a quality trait that I am absolutely putting on notice, and I have to appreciate. So, all right, that's from the Quinyon Mitchell front. Let's get to the Bryce Huff front as we move along here with some of our takeaways from minicamp. I'm afraid that they are not going to get enough pass rush this season. And I've been on the record saying that since essentially they let Hassan Reddick go. I thought it was an absolute disaster, although the New York Jets are dealing with some drama up there. And maybe there's a correlation between why Howie Roseman thought that it was time to move on from him, because they had a lot of culture problems last year. Nobody believed in the head coach, and reasonably so. And we'll get more into that in just a few moments here. But because it's so fragile, maybe Hassan Reddick behind closed doors was creating more controversy than we would like to admit. Homegrown dude, Camden, New Jersey, different here than it is up there. And the communication between him and the Jets organization and Robert Saleh, there's a lot of confusion. Whatever. I'm just trying to pick up the pieces here and see if there was a relationship issue, and that's why they kind of went the path that they did. But regardless, they have to find ways to get to the quarterback. It starts in the middle. You lose Fletcher Cox, and obviously Javon Hargrave hasn't been here for a few years. So Jalen Carter needs to not hit a wall. Last year, he showed signs of being a game wrecker, and then eventually I think the wear and tear and the fatigue settled in. He needs to find a way to break through. And by the way, having a week 5 bye week is not going to pay off dividends in that regards, right? It's not as if you can hit the reset button week 9, week 10, and it's a perfect mix of in the middle of the year. It's super early. So that means from week 6 on, you got to go. There's no breathing room. You have to continue to contribute and be a guy that takes over games. So that's a big step for Jalen Carter. I think he has the skill set for sure to be a dominating force, but it's how long can he do it for without hitting any sort of wall? And with Jordan Davis, it's year 3 on this kid. So come on. Now, I know he's saying he's doing good with the weight and this and that, and maybe they were hiding things behind the scenes as well with him. But, man, I mean, we got to have those two in the middle with your defensive tackles really, just require a ton of not notify, but you got to notify them. Is that the right word? You got to be aware of them, like seriously be aware of them. Not just be aware of them, but understand that they can change the outcome. Pass rush, Brandon Graham, Josh Sweat. Okay, fine. Here's the Bryce Huff thing. Bryce Huff had double-digit sacks last year in a rotational role. So will he have the same level of production when you hand him more snaps? Because it's not as simple as this. Never was a big math guy, okay? Never thrived in that department. But reality is, when you give someone more snaps, it doesn't automatically mean you're getting more results. If anything, it could relate perfectly right back to what I was saying with Jalen Carter, which is it causes sometimes you to run out of gas, run out of fuel, all right? You can't hit that peak of dominance because you're tired, you're fizzling out. He was discussing how he's going to be getting more comfortable dropping back. What? This team lost a pass rusher. One of the best pass rushers in all of football. Someone who blindfolded walks into 12 or 13 sacks by accident. His down years are double-digit sacks in Hassan Reddick. So you sign a young Bryce Huff, who you deem is ascending, and I think he's going to be a good player. But I need more than a good player when you also lose Hassan Reddick. And if you're now going to take away his best attribute, which is getting home, and you're now going to ask him to drop back more, where are we getting the pass rush? So this is what the guy does well. He's extremely talented at pinning his ears back and going after the quarterback. And when you already lack in that department, you're going to drop him back more. That's silly. For example, if you had Hassan Reddick and Bryce Huff and you talk about how you might drop one of them back in coverage more, but you can let Hassan Reddick eat, or you can allow Bryce Huff to flourish, but you start to do things creative with different guys, there's enough bodies there who excel that it's good. But when you remove your best pass rusher, and now Bryce Huff in theory is your best pass rusher, and you're not asking him to rush the passer, what are we doing? I'm very confused. So I don't like hearing that out of minicamp at all. At all. And another big storyline, too, happens to be about the owner. I mean, we're just going to pretend as if the owner opening possibilities of selling some stake into the company, essentially, isn't a massive deal, even though he said that this won't transform into majority stake owners and this and that. Maybe it's just a play of realizing how old he is. He's in his 70s, but they've been working in his son for quite some time. Jeffrey Lurie and Julian Lurie, they've been having him work through the ranks in different departments behind the scenes for a while now to eventually take over. And now Jeffrey Lurie starts opening up the door for possible. Maybe he knows, look, I can make X percent of dollars, and if I'm going to retire at some point, I'll take that cash and I'll put it into what I want to put it into. I have no idea. But I'm just saying, the fact that we've been around Eagles football for a long time with Jeffrey Lurie, when this starts to pop up, it starts to raise some eyebrows a little bit. It makes me wonder where this is headed. That's all. And I can't lose sight of that because it's real. Now, we have a Bleacher Report poll of the show, and I asked the question, do you think Jalen Hurts took shots at Nick Sirianni? And if you missed it, he was asked about what it means that Nick Sirianni was willing to be open-minded, change the offense, have Kellen Moore in here. And he essentially said, I have no idea how to answer that question. The results on this poll is mind-blowing to me. Do you think Jalen Hurts took shots at Nick Sirianni? 89% of the voters say no. 11% say yes. The answer to this poll question is yes. The answer to the poll question is yes. Jalen Hurts was taking shots at Nick Sirianni. What does it say? This is a layup of a question. This is as easy gets. Nick Sirianni, who was an offensive-minded coach, and I'm paraphrasing, but imagine being a quarterback. I want everybody right now to close their eyes and imagine you are a quarterback of a National Football League team. And you are standing in front of the podium after your coach failed miserably last season. There's a ton of questions. Hell, the ownership even wondered if it was time to fire the guy. And they had some deep, real, internal, behind closed doors conversations on if he should be back and deserves to keep his job. And the only reason why they kept him is because it would be a bad look public perception-wise for Jeffrey Lurie to let a head coach go after they let Doug Peterson go, after the Super Bowl. It's all public perception. So the reason why he kept Nick Sirianni is strictly because it would be a bad look. So you're the quarterback, and I'm the reporter. And I look at you and say, hello, blank. Hope you had a great summer. Looking forward to having another year here at the NovaCare Complex. Okay. Nick Sirianni has been very, very, very willing to hear from some other coaches, to allow offensive minds to have their input. And, you know, you just don't see that a lot in this league. It seems to be more about, hey, this is what I like to do. This is my offense. Sometimes coaches can be stubborn. What does it say that Nick Sirianni is willing to be very open with his coaching staff and be very flexible, be very versatile? What does that say to you about the leadership qualities of Coach Nick Sirianni? And your response is, I don't even know how to answer that. Well, you clearly don't like this guy. You clearly don't feel good about this guy. You clearly have some sort of feelings about some type of way about that guy. And you don't feel he's taking shots. Look, Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown are best friends. Not breaking any news here. Jalen Hurts was very aware that last season, A.J. Brown picked up the telephone, called into Philadelphia sports radio to set the record straight. That's important because nobody in the NovaCare complex is naive. They are all understanding the importance of their words and how we consume them and how we talk about them. Jalen Hurts knew exactly what he was doing by the response. Now, this is where things get interesting. Was Jalen right to do that? And the answer to that is no. Even if Jalen Hurts feels a certain type of way about Nick, you have to lie. You have to lie. And I'm trying to think to myself, if you had a quarterback that was polished, not polished, that's the wrong word. Well, I don't know. Whatever word would define a Tom Brady, an Aaron Rodgers. There's a word I'm looking for. It's not respected because Jalen is respected. He's been in the league for a while now and did make a Super Bowl and outdueled Pat Mahomes in that said Super Bowl. But whatever, regardless, the stature. If you had stature in the league and it's Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, 15 years in the league, MVP, Super Bowls and all that, and you felt that you can have some of that swag with your answers to throw your coach under the bus because you hold yourself to a high regard, fine. But Jalen Hurts is not there. Jalen Hurts is not there yet to do that. He's not there yet. Seasoned. That's a good word for short. Now, Drek asked me, how do I get that out of him not answering the question? What do you mean? It's very simple on how I got my result out of that. Jalen, talk us through the importance of Nick Sirianni being willing to adapt and allow his coaches to have a lot of input. For example, when he first got here, he was calling plays. He saw what Shane Steichen brought to the table and elected to give up play calling to allow Shane Steichen to do his thing. What does that say about the coach? Here's your lie. It's very simple. It says a lot. It says a lot. How many guys in the NFL are very willing to do that? Nick Sirianni is a great leader. We love him to death, and we love that he's so open with us. We love his open door policy. We love Nick Sirianni. We love his ability to communicate with us. We love his relationships and his bonds that he creates with us. And it's not just us in the room, meaning the players. It's also his entire staff. He does an amazing job, and I can't wait to go to work for him. That's all. No, he was not put in a lose-lose situation because I just gave you a scenario where there's nothing that could come out negatively in that. What would come out negatively in that? We love Nick Sirianni. I think it says a lot about him. I think it's great. I think it's fantastic that he's willing to work with his coaching staff. There's reasons why there's offensive coordinators in this league. There's reasons why there's quarterback coaches in this league because they're very knowledgeable about the game as well. And you can always learn. I'm in year 4. I'm in year 5. I'm in year 6. Whatever year he's in at this particular time, I'm saying in this hypothetical, I'm always learning. Brandon Graham, he even talks about it. He's always there. He's always willing to learn. Nothing wrong with that. That's all. You got to milk your way through it. But what you can't do is what you did. First off, don't, because there's a comment coming in here saying you had time to think about that answer. In the National Football League, there's a PR team. These PR teams know what's coming. They prepare you for what's coming. And if Jalen Hurts isn't prepared to answer questions about the head coach who should have lost his job, who has no power, and the coordinators are now the ones in charge, and the quarterback can't handle that, well, then how the hell is he going to handle 95% of the new offense, which I was told that they weren't going to change that much, that they're still going to utilize Nick Sirianni's concepts and they're just going to add some of Kellen Moore's touch. But then here's Jalen Hurts, the same press conference, telling us how this is 95% a new offense. So that's the second time he threw Nick Sirianni under the bus. 2 times. Brandon Graham did it as well. When talking about what went wrong last year, Brandon Graham stated, coaches weren't in the right positions to succeed, but I know how he's going to fix it. Well, the coach's job is to hire his coaching staff. He's got no say in the offense now. It's all Kellen Moore's. He's got no say in his coaching staff. Nick Sirianni was stripped of everything, and he's still standing. And he's got to lead this group of men. It's a very hard task for anybody to do, let alone Nick Sirianni, who is goofy. It's a strange dynamic. And those are my takeaways from minicamp. All right, everybody. Thank you all so much for hanging out with me. I appreciate it here on Bleacher Report Live. I'll be seeing you guys very soon in the next upcoming week. We got more Eagles to talk about. We got more Phils to talk about. Thank you all so much, and I'll catch you on the next one. Enjoy your weekend, everybody.